And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies, they go up and down. We're captive on a carousel of time. Mary will light the chalice here in the sanctuary. I invite you to light your own chalice and place it where it can be seen by all of us if you are able. Thank you, Mary. Before we start the first hymn, please let me remind our remote participants to leave yourselves muted. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing with Mary as big and loud as you like. Make it a joyous experience. So let's all sing the opening hymn, Lady of the Season's Laughter.
Lady of the season's laughter, in the summer's warmth be near. When the winter follows after, teach our spirits not to fear. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning near. Sister of the evening starlight, in the falling shadows stay, here among us till the starlight of tomorrow's dawning ray. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning day. Mother of the generations, in whose love a life is worth, everlasting celebration, bring our labors safe to birth. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning earth. Goddess of all time's progression, stand with us when we are engaged, hands and hearts to end oppression, writing history's fairer page. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning age.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad you have joined us today. We acknowledge that our UUCC sanctuary stands on land that was once inhabited by coastal Chumash and Salinas indigenous peoples, whose ancestors lived primarily in the San Luis Obispo area and Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation, inviting speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak at our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect with the UU7 principles. Today's service centers around the third principle. We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Spiritual growth isn't about a vertical ascent to heaven, but about growth in every dimension at once. It's spirituality in 3D. Growth in spirit doesn't measure one's proximity to a God above, but rather the spaciousness of one's own soul, its volume, its capacity, its size. We need souls that can take in the world in all its complexity and diversity, yet still maintain our integrity. And we need souls that can love and be in relationship with all of this complexity instead of fight or flight. We need a spiritual posture of embrace. My name is Marianne Sunny Anderson, and I am your worship associate this morning. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We're glad you've joined us this morning. If you are not on our mailing list, please visit our website at www.uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all of our activities. And please check out What's Happening, a weekly e-blast sent to all of our members and friends. This is a great way to keep up with the latest news in our community. And as a reminder, if you wish to see this or any past Zoom services again, recordings of these services can be found on the UUCC website and Facebook as well. The membership committee invites non-members to consider joining our community. Please contact Diane DeMarco or a person on the board if you are interested. Thank you. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. The affirmation is both a recognition of the nature of our community as well as a promise we make and aspire to. Let us now sing the affirmation.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help, and to help, and to help one another.
We set aside this time for any short announcements that would be of interest to our UU community and members and friends. Please keep your items short and to the point. For any items that need more explanation, please call or email the person after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand. When Randy or I call on your name, please stand or unmute yourself, then speak. Any announcements in the sanctuary, Mary?
Hi, all singers. It's been a long time. We're about to embark on a new journey together. We'll be starting, I'll be sending, so check your emails. I'll be sending you a choir piece. It's going to be a process, but we hope to come up with a hybrid choral choir. So check your emails. Thank you.
I believe that's it from the sanctuary. Treva, do you have an announcement? Treva.
Good morning, all. Just a heads up that our regularly scheduled board meeting, which would have happened next Monday, is actually going to be happening on Friday, just because next week is Thanksgiving week. So if you are interested in attending, please do email me. We'll send you that link.
Marianne?
Never mind.
Marianne, could you repeat that since we had a hard time hearing it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Treva?
I'm sorry, no, never mind. Disregard.
Okay, disregard. She'll be announcing it next week. We were a little ahead of ourselves time-wise. That's all right.
Okay, anybody else in the sanctuary?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, then Kat, could you unmute yourself, please? And tell us your announcement.
Hey, thank you everybody for your contributions to the food drive that we're having for Thanksgiving. I learned from Danilda Ray's Link Family Resource Center that we are going to be serving 30 families instead of 20. So really appreciating the food that came in last Saturday. And we got one more Saturday to go. So thank you so much. My thanks to Rebecca and Robert for helping be there at the church to get the food that you bring. We're also picking up checks and we're doing your shopping for you, and whatever you can do, we appreciate it. Thank you. One more Saturday to go.
And we
Thank you.
appreciate you too, Kat. Thanks so much. Robert, could you please unmute yourself and tell us your announcement?
Morning, everybody. I just wanted to let you know that this Wednesday, November the 10th at 7 p.m., the Moving Toward Racial Justice group will be meeting by Zoom. We'll be reviewing the book by Layla Saad, Me and White Supremacy, and we'll be going over days 6, 7, and 8. If you need any information or need the Zoom link, get hold of Nancy Tolan, whose contact information is in the directory. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert. Jan, would you please unmute yourself and tell us your announcement?
Yes, Mary and I are busy planning, well, we're kind of busy, planning the holiday service for December 24th. And we have some interesting ideas and we need some input from everybody. We want this to be a real community celebration. We're thinking of doing a 2-hour program. The first hour would be 5 to 6, an open house at the sanctuary, which we all need, I'm sure, and then a hybrid Zoom service starting at 6. And we want input from as many people as we possibly can so we can all celebrate getting through this incredibly difficult time, and we need it. Our souls need it. Thanks.
Thanks,
We'll be-
Jan.
one
Sounds
more
like
thing.
a lot of, yeah, go ahead.
We'll be calling you too, so you won't escape.
Thanks, Jan. All right, I think that's all of the announcements. Back to you, Marianne.
Thank you, Diane. Next week, Jamie Wolf from our sister church, the UU Slow Fellowship, will present Blessed Be, an Agnostic Wrestles with Blessings. We take this time to celebrate all those who are having a birthday this month. Birthdays are a special moment. It's a time in which you feel as if the world is taking a moment to invite you into being, just like it was on your day of birth. If you have a birthday this month, please raise your hand. When Randy or I call your name, unmute yourself and then reveal your special date.
Anyone in the sanctuary have a birthday? Okay, well, we've got a special guest today who has a birthday. Let's call on her. Susan Landau, would you please unmute yourself?
Hi, everybody. It's my birthday today. I am 70. 70.
Aloha.
Okay, I think that's about it.
Didn't somebody say Andy's birthday was October 3rd?
I think he's November.
Oh, I think it's November, okay.
Yeah, November. I think Andy had just had a birthday, I believe, Andy. This birthday candle honors all the friends and family members of this community who are also celebrating their birthdays this month. Thank you, Mary. Sharing together some of our joys and concerns on our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as a part of your personal life, but please be mindful and considerate of all who come to worship with us this morning. This is a time of community building. The first reading is an excerpt from the Holy Bible, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Let us now enter a place of peace and serenity where you are one with your spiritual being. Be at peace within your space where the absence of all that is temporal is its most cherished gift. Let us enter the stillness. Please come back now. The second reading is two brief selections from Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha. Have you also learned that secret from the river, that there is no such thing as time, that the river is everywhere at the same time, at the source and at the mouth, at the waterfall, at the ferry, at the current, in the ocean and in the mountains, everywhere, and that the present only exists for it, not the shadow of the past, nor the shadow of the future. It may be important to great thinkers to examine the world, to explain and despise it, but I think it is only important to love the world, not to despise it, not for us to hate each other, but to be able to regard the world and ourselves and all beings with love, admiration, and respect. Please join in singing In Sweet Fields of Autumn, number 52. In sweet fields of autumn, the gold grain is falling, the white clouds drift lonely, the wild swan is calling. Alas for the daisies, the tall fern and grasses, when windswept and rainfall fill lowlands and passes. The snows of December shall fill windy hollow, the bleak rain trails after, and March wind shall follow. The deer through the valleys leave prints of their going, and diamonds of sleet mark the ridges of snowing. The stillness of death shall stoop over the water, the clover sweep low where the pale streamlets falter, but deep in the earth clod the black seed Thank you, Mary. That was lovely. Today's sermon is titled, To Everything a Season, to be delivered by my dear friend, Reverend Ken Reed Brown. Ken was born and raised on Long Island in New York. He received his BA in philosophy at Haverford College, then taught music for several years at a school for children with autism and other cognitive challenges. Ken attended seminary at Starr King's School for the Ministry in Berkeley, California, then worked for 4 years at Cambridge Forum, a media and social justice ministry of First Parish in Cambridge, where he was also an assistant minister. In '87, Ken was called to serve First Parish in Hingham, Old Ship Church, Unitarian Universalist, just south of Boston. He lives in Hingham with his wife, Susan. They have 3 grown and married children and 4 grandsons, ages 2 through 6. May I present my friend, Reverend Ken Reed Brown.
Unmute. Thank you, Sunny. As we all knew you way back when, a long time ago, it's great to see you again, to hear your singing, and as we will later, and wonderful to be with all of you again this year, as we were last year. Thank you for the return invitation. This year, I'll be preaching from inside our Old Ship Meeting House. I think you can see a slide now of the exterior. Last year, the building wasn't available. We had our youth meeting here during that same time. So I can be inside, and you get to see some of the inside of the building. So here we are. I'm going to swivel a little bit and give you a bit of a whirlwind tour, literally. There's the pulpit, not original. The building was built in 1681 to begin with. The pulpit was put in 1755. I guess you'd say it's our new pulpit. As we go around, you can see the extensions, the roof line, I'll kind of show you, goes down there. And then in the 18th century, the building was expanded on 2 occasions in order to accommodate a growing congregation. And as I go around, you'll see our choir loft and the organ, which is now a digital instrument. And I don't know if you can make out through some of these windows our beautiful autumn leaves. We are having quite a splendid autumn here in Hingham. We never go anywhere, Susan and I, to enjoy the autumn leaves. And we'll come around again because it's beautiful right here. I'm going to point my computer up again so you can see the beams overhead, all original. There's some lights. Oak beams. We had someone come in and do some tree ring studies a number of years ago and determined that at least some of the posts and beams were 600 years old when they were cut down to build this building. So this takes us back almost 1,000 years here. We are on the land, the ancestral land of the Massachusetts people. We honor and name that every Sunday. It was through the woods, the forests, that were these oaks and the pines of some of the other wood that the first peoples of this area, Massachusetts, Nipmuc, Wampanoag, hunted, and in the waters just over this way that they fished. So that's where we are, where I am, and where you are virtually. I'm preaching from the oldest wooden meeting house in the country of any denomination, so it's certainly the oldest wooden church building in our denomination, Unitarian Universalist. We were gathered as a congregation in 1635, so we're one of the oldest congregations in our movement, and I guess you're one of the newest, so this is pretty cool. Coast to coast, old to new. So, you heard the reading, thank you, Sunny, from Ecclesiastes, and we're going to get to hear her sing it later on, the Pete Seeger version of that 3rd chapter from Ecclesiastes. I've preached on Ecclesiastes from the book a number of times over the years, as my congregation well knows, and we here have sung Pete Seeger's version a number of times as well, of those verses from chapter 3 of the book. Now, I first read Ecclesiastes one summer when I was a camp counselor in the Adirondack Mountains. So that was a long time ago. I had it in my mind to just browse through the Bible and start reading. And I came across that. It resonated for me then. Barely, still a teenager. Resonated for me then, as it has in every decade of my life since, and still does. Interesting to me that this book, written clearly, as you read it, by an older man who'd experienced all kinds of things in his life, clearly, too, a man of privilege when you read all the things that he did in order to try to find meaning and purpose in life. All the usual paths he tried out. Pleasure, power, and so on, position. Experimenting, if you will. Interesting that this book, written clearly by an older man, resonated with me, a young guy, callow youth, you might say. I hadn't had much time at that point to experiment very much. But his words did strike chords, quite similar to the chords struck for me when I read, at about the same time, the little novel by Hermann Hesse, Siddhartha. A lot of us in our generation were reading Siddhartha back then. Raise your hand if you were reading Siddhartha 50 or 60 years ago. Yeah. I read it just, I guess, my senior year in high school, found it somehow, and then in a freshman seminar with philosophy professor Ashok Gangadine, charismatic young guy. He had us read it, among other things, Plato and Aristotle, more of the standard philosophical texts. Ashok is still teaching. He's 10 years older than I am. He's 80 and still inspiring more generations of students. But boy, he caught me in philosophy, not just with Siddhartha, but with everything in that seminar. And I became a philosophy major, as you heard. As for Siddhartha, the character, loosely modeled after the Buddha, but the character Siddhartha meets the Buddha in the course of the book, as some of you may recall. But he too, like the writer of Ecclesiastes, tried all these usual paths of pleasure, power, position, and so on, towards finding meaning and purpose, only at the end, again, as lots of you are going to recall, to find peace as a simple ferryman at the side of a river. We heard those words in the second reading, his words about the ever-flowing river, suggestive of the river of time. Well, again, that word time, river of time, yet even bringing us to full presence in this moment of time. And reminding us, in those words we heard, that perhaps the most important task, if you will, of our lives is simply to love the world. Bill McKibben, you all know Bill McKibben, the climate change guy. He once said, I have this quote on my desk somewhere, said, loving the world is easy. It's everywhere. All you have to do is look around, and there's plenty to love. I don't know whether you've heard, I'm seeing some of you are probably about my age or older or a little younger. He just started a new thing. He started 350.org a long time ago, and now he started something he's calling Third Act. And this is for people who are in the third act of our lives to join in with all those young people who are marching in Glasgow and Greta Thunberg and all of her crowd and so on, Sunrise Movement. Third act is for us to be in solidarity with, and if we can, still march, write letters, and so on. In any case, that was a little bit of a digression. How did I get there? Back to Ecclesiastes. The book's, oh yeah, right, loving the world. That's what it's about, isn't it? Loving the world. But back to Ecclesiastes. The book's writer, who is often known as either the teacher or the preacher. So he eventually, as we said, found peace, not by the side of a river. I haven't said this yet, but in a not altogether unrelated way. Through the admonition, if you read the whole book, through the admonition to enjoy all the simple gifts of life. He said more than once in the book, goes around and around in this book, he said, there is nothing better for mortals, that's us, nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. knowing, as he also wrote in the famous opening passages, that life is short, a vanity. Now that's a poor translation of a Hebrew word which means something like a puff of wind. Here and gone. Life is like that, a puff of wind. Brief, transient, breath of wind. It was in this spirit that I once preached one of my sermons from Ecclesiastes that I titled, "The Bible's Hidden Buddhist." Anyway, his words, admonishing us to enjoy the simple gifts, maybe another way of saying just love the world. Love the world. In any case, all I've said so far is by way of musing on this fact that this ancient book resonated for me as it does for many during all the seasons of my life, those early years and all the way through. As now, at the biblical age of 70, I share a birthday year with one of you whose birthday it is this month. I just had my 70th. As I've begun, really already have begun, a later season. Still resonates. And this resonating, I think, is because the message, though penned from a man in the later season, clearly, it's a message that indeed is relevant to every season of our lives. And this is where those well-known verses that we heard from Sunny earlier, from chapter 3 of Ecclesiastes, come in. So the old man had lived long enough to observe that life has natural seasons, ebbs and flows, not just the 4 seasons, but all kinds of seasons, a natural time for this, and a time for that, a time to plant, then a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to weep, and a time to laugh. It's appropriate one time or another, and so it goes, as he observed, offering wise counsel perhaps to those of his own time in life, but to those in earlier times of life and all times of life. As if to say, for example, don't worry. Don't worry that your weeping will go on forever. There will be a time to laugh again. We all need to hear that in our times of grief or other sorrow. Your weeping will not go on forever. A time to laugh will arise. As if to say, mourn when it's time to mourn, but don't fear that you'll never dance again. In fact, I remember a couple of years ago, in the before times, a dear friend of mine, colleague, Robbie Walsh. Maybe some of you encountered Robbie over the years. He was minister in Duxbury for a long time, married one of my parishioners, second marriage for both of them, and they settled here. Quite wonderful. Robbie died, 2 or 3 years ago in the spring, June, and it happened that it was a week or 2 weeks at most before his now wife was to celebrate the marriage of her son. Well, we went forward. He was going to officiate at that wedding, but another colleague of ours and I officiated, and I can still picture Kitty, his wife, dancing in the midst of her weeping. Never fear that mourning will go on forever. You will dance again. And as if to say, pay attention. Sometimes it's right to speak, sometimes it's better to keep silent, and so on. Well, I don't know about you, but for me, this perspective, just hearing those words, time for every season, natural rhythms like Siddhartha's river flowing with natural ebbs and flows, just hearing those words brings me a measure of peace, if peace I need, or more peace if I'm already feeling pretty peaceful, and throughout the seasons of my life. This said, there's another part of the message from this old man, preacher, teacher, that I take a little bit of issue with. Right at the outset of the book, he says, complains, it surely sounds like he's complaining, that there's nothing new under the sun. Sun rises, the sun sets, nothing new under the sun. Everything just repeats. Workers in the end gain nothing from their toil. One man sows, another man reaps. What are you going to do? All is vanity. Here's what he says. All things are wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, or the ear with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Boy, if we're not depressed after reading that. But remember, this is where he begins, at the very beginning of the book. It's not where he ends, not where he goes. He begins by expressing one of the many seasons of the soul, so to speak. After all, it may be that we've all felt that way sometimes. It just goes on. Doc Watson has a song in very much the same spirit, a country song, where he says, sun comes up, sun goes down. Life gets tedious, don't it? We all have that season. So it is where he begins, but not where he ends. If he'd stopped there, I don't know that the book would have made it into the Bible. It was a dicey proposition as it was, that the Ecclesiastes and the Song of Songs, and I think Job made it in, but they did, into the canon. And as far as Ecclesiastes go, it's because he didn't stop there. He went on. He went on. He eventually got around to affirming, as I've already noted, that the good in our simple daily lives of working, eating, and drinking. And further, but here's where I take a little bit of issue with him, unlike him, I would affirm that there are new things under the sun. Sure, the rhythms continue of the seasons of our lives. We're born, we die, and so the same rhythms, the fundamental things of life still apply, as the old song has it, but always in fresh ways. Look, I have my routines. You maybe do too. You probably do. I have my morning routines especially. Wake up at pretty much the same hour, my wife and I I usually go for a run, or sometimes we go for a walk together. Come back, have breakfast, pretty much the same breakfast every day. Read the paper. Well, paper's a little different, but same, Boston Globe. Then I sit down in my favorite chair, same chair, with my favorite kind of tea, same tea, Lapsang Souchong organic, in case you're wondering. Great company, the Tea Spot in Boulder, Colorado, if you're looking for organic teas, all kinds of teas. So I have my routines. Nothing new under the sun, nothing new in my lives. Well, here's the thing. Each morning, speaking of the sun, we all know this, the morning show is a little different. The array of colors, if it's not cloudy, and even the clouds, they're a little different. The show is a little different. Yeah, the sun rises, but a little different each day. The feeling of the atmosphere differs from day to day, dry or moist, and so on. In this season of autumn, certainly around here, the colors, there are more colors or more leaves off the trees. Just overnight, changes. Each morning, when I sit with my cup of tea, I read. I'm beyond the paper by then, and I read something, an ancient text or poetry, and a little different. And then I write. Sometimes I surprise myself with what I write. I don't know what I'm going to say. I didn't know everything I was going to say just now, as far as that goes. In fact, that favorite chair of mine, we just got it reupholstered. The old chair, but it's new. It's like the guy who, I've had the same axe for 50 years. How about it? I've only had to change the handle 3 times and the blade 4 times. Same axe. So things are the same, but we can always be surprised. And how boring it would be to think that we're not going to be surprised by something in the course of the day. Might be small, might be large, might be great, might not be great. But every day brings something. Not to mention every year, every season. Here are a few lines from Richard Powers' new book. Some of you may have read the Overstory. Wonderful book. He's got a new book called Bewilderment. It's a work of fiction set in the not-too-distant future. 2 sentences. Earth had 2 kinds of people. Those who could do the math and follow the science, and those who were happier with their own truths. But in our heart's daily practice, we all lived as if tomorrow would be a clone of today. Now, Powers was writing in the context of the climate crisis, but I think his message applies also to just about every dimension of our lives. We too easily fall into habits and routines, as I've said, that can blind us to the freshness of each moment. Now, we light a chalice in our congregations every week, but we can do it freshly. Really, look at that candle and experience it freshly. So it's the same ritual, like the sun is rising, same sun, but even the sun is changing, right? Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "If you miss the present moment, you miss your appointment with life." And he said, that is very serious. So let me draw towards a conclusion by bringing all I've said thus far into a little more reflection, not on moments, but on seasons, in particular the seasons of our lives. First, just as we do well not to assume that each day, that tomorrow will be a clone of now, it's also life enriching not to assume that each season of our lives, these much longer seasons, is going to be just a continuation of the previous one. It's enriching to allow ourselves to be surprised as we move from one season into another. Where'd that wrinkle come from? That's more gray hair than I had yesterday, isn't it? Not necessarily a bad surprise. Ram Dass, in his book, Still Here, was struck by a friend of his from another culture, I can't remember, who said to him, "Ram Dass, you're looking older." And he was saying it as a compliment, right? How you frame it. So we can learn to honor each season for what it brings. So I want to just briefly go through some of the seasons as we might understand it. Childhood season. Most children, we now have these 4 little grandsons, seem quite naturally to take life as it comes. And they laugh when they want to laugh. They cry when it's time to cry. And they have their own gifts that they just throw out before our culture and our parenting and grandparenting perhaps changes them. But they've got this curiosity, their personalities. As we enter adolescence and then young adulthood, we again quite naturally, all these things as part of being human, find ourselves exploring most likely different paths in life, of course affected by our social circumstances. Some of us have more opportunities than many others. Just as naturally, we may be plagued during that season, do you remember, in your late teens and 20s by worries. What am I going to do? Who am I going to do it with? Will I find a partner? Do I even want a partner in life? Where am I going to live? I don't want to go back there. But it was what it was. A valuable season, right? It comes with the territory, normal, human, to everything a season. Then, then comes middle adulthood, what the Hindus call the householder stage of life. Depending on the nature of your household, you're single, you're partnered, you're with a family, but it's a time of life for just about everyone where you're making your way, seeking a career or work or a job, supporting yourself, maybe supporting family and so on. For most, it's a time full to the brim with a to-do list, maybe not as much time for reflection or contemplation as you might like or think you want. But again, all coming with the seasonal territory, normal, human, to everything a season. Then comes a transition to what some are calling elderhood. I'm there, as I said, at least. I've been there for a while, 70, which may include retirement from whatever work we've been doing. I'm looking towards that. I'm still here. And if we're fortunate, maybe more time for reflection, contemplation. Maybe more time as well to expand what had just been a hobby. More time to play the banjo, for example, or whatever it might be. Maybe more time for volunteering, for saying yes to things we didn't have time to say yes to before, to serve in ways we want to serve and haven't been able to do more in ways that suit our gifts, to help and heal in our hurting world with our neighbors or more broadly. And from a place of, we may not think we have it, but of lifelong earned wisdom. All as we physically slow down. Have some of you noticed that? The replacement cells simply aren't quite as efficient as the cells they're replacing. Just the way it is. Yet if we accept that this is the case, I'm a runner. I've run the New York Marathon before. They're running it today, or I've run it. I may run marathons again. I'm surely not going to run it as fast as I did 30 years ago or even 10. Just the way it is. If we can accept that this is the case, we slow down. We're going to have ills, replacement parts, and so on. It's what it is here, friends, in this later season, even beyond 70. It can also be a season of letting go of some of the striving that was naturally part of the earlier season. letting go of our younger self, even our bodies and what we used to be able to do and maybe can't. Not that we don't try to keep ourselves healthy, improve the odds on health, but we change. It's letting go of, but also letting go to. Letting go more fully into life, which means into each moment. This candle, these people on the screen, wherever you are, this place, each day, each season. But finally, whatever season of our life, may we remember that to everything a season is how things are. It's actually beautiful. And that there are blessings to be found in each season, even in the midst of trial and trouble, and we've all had those trials and troubles. It may sometimes be very hard in those seasons, those times, to know our blessings. It might just be a friend sitting quietly next to us. And we're more likely to experience those blessings, to notice them, if we do our best to awaken each day to the surprise of what a day might bring. So may it be. Blessed be. Amen.
Thank you, Ken. Reason to pause and reflect. Really appreciate that very, very much. The morning offering will now be given and received. Please keep in mind that our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all the financial support from our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and our institutional well-being. You are invited to participate in the blessing of giving. For those at home, please use one of the methods shown on the screen. Thank you.
The offering music today is Everything Must Change, and the lyrics, I just want to have you think about them as they applied so relevantly to the sermon today. Everything must change, nothing stays the same. Everyone will change, no one stays the same. The young become the old, and mysteries do unfold. For that's the way of time, no one and nothing goes unchanged.
Thank you, Jan. That was a lovely arrangement. Our thanks for all gifts given and received for the work of this community. Let us now sing the doxology. The freer step, the fuller breath, the wide horizon's grander view, the sense of life that knows no death, the life that maketh all things new. Thank you, Mary. Please join me in singing the closing hymn, Turn, Turn, Turn by Pete Seeger. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of faith, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time for love, a time to hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. Let us now recite the valediction. The flame of this chalice will no longer burn today, but the light of the flame within our hearts continues to shine brightly, illuminating the love felt in our community. Please extinguish your chalice at home now. After the benediction, please click on the gallery view button in the upper right corner of your screen, but please remain muted. Randy or I will call on you when you raise your hand. Ken?
Little did you know, Sonny, we were playing a duet. Everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven.
Pretty soon, Ken, we'll be doing it together.
Through all the seasons of our lives and whatever season we each find ourselves now, may we live with gratitude in our hearts, grateful for whatever blessings there are in our lives, and turning to make of our lives a blessing to others, a blessing to all life. Blessed be. Amen.
Amen. So be it.